The medical bay of the Celestial Harmony fell into an eerie silence as Dr. Van Diesel, the ship's chief medical officer and a member of the Krillian species, stepped back from the examination table. His three-fingered hands trembled slightly as he deactivated the bioscanner, its holographic display flickering into darkness. The readings were conclusive, unmistakable. Final time of death, 1447 Galactic Standard, Van Diesel announced, his voice heavy with defeat. Around him, the medical team, a mixture of species from across the known galaxy, stood in stunned disbelief. They had done everything possible, employed every technique known to advanced interstellar medicine, but the humans' injuries had been too severe. Lisa Chen had been part of the human delegation aboard the Celestial Harmony, a massive exploration vessel carrying representatives from 47 different species. The mission was one of unity and discovery, pushing into uncharted sectors of space. But 3 days ago, disaster had struck. A catastrophic malfunction in the ship's power core had sent a surge of energy through multiple decks, and Lisa had been caught in the blast while attempting to evacuate civilians from the affected areas. Van Diesel had worked on her for 6 hours straight. Her body had sustained third-degree burns across 40% of her skin, multiple organ failures, severe internal bleeding, and traumatic brain injury. By all accounts, by every metric known to galactic medicine, she should have died within minutes of arriving in the medical bay. But humans, as Van Diesel had learned during his time serving alongside them, were remarkably stubborn creatures still. Even stubbornness had its limits. "Prepared the body for preservation," Van Diesel said softly, turning away from the table. "Her family will want Doctor," interrupted Nurse Thalara, a Velosian with iridescent blue skin. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the room like a blade. "Doctor." The human's finger just moved. Van Diesel spun around, his large eyes widening. "That's impossible. Neural activity ceased 4 minutes ago. It's just residual electrical discharge in the muscles, a common post-mortem phenomenon." "With respect," Dr. Thalara said, her voice steadier now, "I know the difference between a muscle spasm and voluntary movement." Look, every eye in the medical bay fixed on Lisa's right hand. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, slowly, deliberately, her index finger curled inward. Then another finger. Then her entire hand formed a weak fist. "By the eternal void," breathed Dr. Van Diesel, rushing back to the table. He frantically reactivated the bioscanner and the holographic display blazed to life above Lisa's body. What he saw defied everything he understood about biology, medicine, and the fundamental nature of life itself. Lisa's brain activity was returning, not all at once, but in scattered clusters like stars igniting across a dark sky. Her heart, which had been completely still for over 5 minutes, gave a single, feeble beat. Then another, each one slightly stronger than the last. "This is impossible," Van Diesel muttered, his hands flying across the controls, trying to make sense of the data flooding his screens. "Cerebral death is irreversible after 3 minutes without oxygen. She's been gone for over 5. Her cells should be." Lisa's eyes snapped open. The medical team collectively gasped, several stumbling backward. Her eyes were unfocused at first, rolling slightly as if searching for something to anchor to. Then they found Van Diesel's face. And despite the obvious pain coursing through her body, despite having just returned from death itself, a weak smile crossed her cracked lips. Did we save them?" Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. "The civilians. In Deck 7. Van Diesel stood frozen, unable to process what he was witnessing. In his 30 years of medical practice across a dozen different worlds, he had never seen anything remotely like this. Death was death, a universal constant that applied to every known species in the galaxy. Yet here was a human, a being from a relatively primitive world that had only achieved interstellar travel within the last century, casually defying the most fundamental law of biology. "Yes," he finally managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Lisa, you saved them. All 43 civilians made it to safety because of you." Lisa's smile widened slightly and she let out a small, pained laugh. "Good. That's good." Her eyes started to close again, and panic seized Van Diesel's chest. No, stay with me," he said urgently, adjusting the 4 feeds and checking her vital signs. To his amazement, they were stabilizing. Slowly, impossibly, but stabilizing nonetheless. "Not going anywhere, Doc," Lisa murmured, "just tired. So damn tired." Over the next several hours, Van Diesel and his team watched in awe as Lisa's body performed what could only be described as a miracle. Her regenerative capabilities were unlike anything in galactic medical records. Damaged tissues began repairing themselves at an accelerated rate. Her immune system, which should have been completely compromised, fought off infections with ferocious efficiency. Even her brain, which had suffered severe trauma, showed signs of rewiring itself around the damaged areas. Van Diesel sent his findings to the Galactic Medical Council, expecting skepticism or accusations of falsified data. Instead, he received confirmation that similar cases had been quietly documented across human space. Humans who had survived radiation exposure that would kill any other species. Humans who had recovered from diseases declared universally fatal. Humans who had endured injuries that, by all rights, should have been impossible to survive. 3 weeks later, Lisa was walking again. 6 weeks later, she was cleared for light duty. The medical team watched her progress with a mixture of scientific fascination and genuine affection. She became something of a legend aboard the Celestial Harmony, the human who had died and come back. The woman too stubborn to stay dead, Vin Diesel, found himself pondering the implications as he watched Lisa during her physical therapy sessions. Humanity was still considered a relatively minor species in galactic affairs, technologically behind, politically fragmented, militarily weak by comparison to the great powers. But if their biological resilience was any indication of their potential, perhaps the galaxy had underestimated them. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. Perhaps it was simply their refusal to accept that anything was truly impossibly of death itself. As Lisa completed another round of exercises and flashed him a triumphant grin, Vin Diesel couldn't help but smile back. The humans had a saying. He'd learned, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Looking at Lisa, he was beginning to understand that for humans, even what did kill them might not be enough to keep them down.